Ethan Sterling had a kingdom but no wings to fly. From his penthouse perch, the world outside was a blur of motion he couldn't join. Paralysis had stolen his legs. Wealth had built his cage, and silence had become his closest companion. He was a billionaire's son, adrift in a sea of privilege, yearning for a world he could only watch. Ethan Sterling's world was a masterpiece of muted elegance. The penthouse, perched atop the Sterling Tower, was a sanctuary of polished chrome, cool marble, and hushed tones. Sunlight, filtered through UV-protected windows, cast long, precise shadows across the vast living spaces, illuminating dust motes that danced in a silent ballet. For Ethan, an 8-year-old boy confined to a state-of-the-art wheelchair, this was the entirety of his universe. He was the sole heir to a dynasty built on innovation and ruthless business acumen, a legacy that felt both a suffocating burden and a distant, unachievable dream. His condition, a cruel twist of fate at birth, had left his legs unresponsive, rendering him permanently paralyzed from the waist down. While his parents, Robert and Eleanor Sterling, showered him with every conceivable luxury, the finest medical care, cutting-edge adaptive technology, and a private suite filled with the most sophisticated toys money could buy, they rarely filled the quiet spaces with their presence. Robert, a titan of industry, was a phantom, his meetings and global travels consuming his life. Eleanor, an elegant socialite, was more present, but her affection was often tinged with a palpable anxiety, a constant fear for Ethan's delicate health. Her touch was gentle, her words were carefully chosen, and her gaze often held a sorrow that Ethan, even at his young age, understood was tied to his own physical reality. Ethan's days followed a rigid, predictable rhythm. Mornings began with a team of attendants helping him through his physiotherapy routine, a series of exercises designed to maintain muscle strength and prevent complications. Each stretch, each movement, was a reminder of what he couldn't do. Then came his lessons, delivered by private tutors via a secure video link. Mathematics, literature, history, all designed to prepare him for the formidable future his name demanded. Lunch was a quiet affair, often eaten alone, the clinking of silverware echoing in the cavernous dining room. Afternoons were for enrichment, educational games, virtual reality simulations of exotic locales, or building elaborate structures with magnetic blocks, always supervised, always curated. His favorite time, however, was when he could be left to his own devices near the floor-to-ceiling windows that offered a panoramic view of the city. From his vantage point, he could see the distant parks, the vibrant green patches teeming with life. He'd watch children, impossibly small from his height, chase each other, their laughter carried on the wind, their movements free and uninhibited. He'd trace their paths with his eyes, a knot of longing tightening in his stomach. He saw a world of boundless energy, of scraped knees and triumphant shouts, a world that felt impossibly distant, separated by more than just glass and altitude. Sometimes he'd spot a solitary figure on a bicycle, weaving through the crowds with an effortless grace that captivated him. He imagined the wind in their hair, the exhilaration of speed, the simple joy of movement. He'd try to replicate the sensation in his mind, flexing his fingers, imagining them gripping handlebars, but the phantom feeling always dissolved, leaving him with the familiar weight of his own immobility. His attendants were kind, efficient, and always respectful, but they were employees, their interactions professional. His tutors were knowledgeable, but their focus was purely academic. His parents, though they loved him, were often absent, their guilt manifesting as material gifts rather than genuine, spontaneous connection. Ethan felt like a precious, fragile artifact, carefully preserved but rarely truly engaged with. He was surrounded by people, yet profoundly alone. One particular Tuesday, a day much like any other, Ethan was in his therapy room gazing out at the city. The sky was a brilliant, cloudless blue, a stark contrast to the muted hues of his indoor existence. He was practicing reaching for a bright red ball, his fingers stretching, his arm trembling slightly with the effort. He missed. The ball rolled just out of reach, a small crimson symbol of his daily struggles. A sigh escaped his lips, a quiet sound swallowed by the room's soundproofing. He felt a familiar wave of frustration wash over him, a dull ache that was as much emotional as physical. He wished with a fierce intensity that surprised even himself that something, anything, would break the predictable monotony of his life. He wished for a connection, for a moment of genuine,
unscripted interaction, for a glimpse of a world where he wasn't just Ethan Sterling, the paralyzed heir, but just Ethan, a boy who might, just might, be able to play. The city outside continued its relentless hum, oblivious to the quiet yearning within its most exclusive penthouse. He closed his eyes, a silent plea escaping his lips, a wish sent out into the vast, indifferent expanse of the sky. The Sterling Empire thrived on meticulous planning and strategic foresight. Every detail, from the company's quarterly reports to their philanthropic ventures, was managed with an almost obsessive precision. Their annual charity gala was a cornerstone of their public image, a dazzling display of wealth and goodwill, primarily focused on supporting advancements in pediatric medicine. This year, however, Eleanor Sterling had championed a new initiative, a partnership with a program that brought children from underprivileged communities to the city for enriching experiences, hoping to broaden their horizons and inspire them. It was a noble gesture, designed to offer a stark contrast to the often harsh realities these children faced and to subtly reinforce the Sterling's commitment to social betterment. Among the group of 20, children selected for this special visit to the prestigious Metropolitan Children's Hospital, a facility heavily funded by the Sterlings, was Lily. At 10 years old, Lily was a vibrant force of nature, her spirit as bright and untamed as the wildflowers that dotted the fields surrounding her family's modest farm. Her world was one of open skies, calloused hands, and the comforting rhythm of community. Her wealth was measured not in dollars, but in shared laughter, the scent of freshly baked bread, and the deep, unwavering love of her family. She possessed an innate curiosity and a remarkable empathy, often found befriending stray animals or comforting a classmate who felt left out. She saw the world not through a lens of scarcity, but of wonder. The day of the hospital visit dawned crisp and bright, a perfect autumn morning. The children, a kaleidoscope of excited chatter and wide-eyed awe, were bussed into the city, their rural innocence a stark contrast to the urban bustle. They marveled at the towering buildings, the endless stream of cars, and the sheer scale of everything. The hospital itself was a revelation, a sprawling complex of gleaming corridors, advanced equipment, and a constant, purposeful hum of activity. Their guide, a kind but busy hospital liaison named Sarah, explained the different departments, from the bustling emergency room to the serene, sunlit play areas. Ethan, in his therapy room, had been experiencing one of his usual introspective afternoons. He'd completed his physiotherapy, had a quiet lunch, and was now settled by the window, a tablet in his lap displaying a nature documentary he barely registered. His mind drifted, as it often did, to the world beyond the glass. He heard the distant murmur. Suddenly, the doors to his therapy room, usually kept closed unless his therapists were present, swung open. Sarah, the hospital liaison, had briefly stepped away from her group to confirm a schedule with a nurse, and in that fleeting moment, a few of the more adventurous children, led by a whirlwind of energy, had ventured into the nearest open doorway. Lily was one of them. Drawn by the unusual quiet of the room and the glimpse of the city view, she had peeked inside, her bright, curious eyes scanning the space. Her gaze fell upon Ethan, who sat frozen, half hidden behind his advanced wheelchair, a mixture of surprise and apprehension on his face. He expected the usual reaction, a stare of pity, a quick retreat, or perhaps a whispered comment. But Lily didn't hesitate. Her eyes, the color of warm honey, lit up with genuine interest, not judgment. She saw not the paralysis, not the opulent setting, but simply another child. She nudged the children beside her, a silent invitation, and then, with the uninhibited confidence of someone who knew no social barriers, she walked towards Ethan. "Wow," she exclaimed, her voice clear and melodic, cutting through the room's quiet. "Is this where you play pretend?" She gestured around the room, her eyes scanning the specialized equipment with a child's uncritical fascination. "It looks like a super cool spaceship control room." Ethan blinked, taken aback. No one had ever described his therapy room like this. It was always about his condition, his treatment. This was different. This was playful. He managed a small, almost imperceptible nod, his throat suddenly feeling tight. Lily, undeterred by his silence, stepped closer, her gaze now fixed on Ethan. "I'm Lily," she offered, extending a small dirt-smudged hand. "We're visiting from Green Meadow Farms. It's a bit different from here. I guess. Lots of cows and sunshine." Ethan, his heart pounding a strange, unfamiliar rhythm against his ribs, slowly reached out his own hand, his fingers brushing hers. It was a small gesture, a fleeting touch, but for Ethan it felt monumental. "I'm Ethan," he managed, his voice barely a whisper. He noticed her hand, slightly grubby from her farm life, and for the first time he didn't feel disgusted by the dirt. He felt a strange sense of connection to its earthy reality. Just then, Sarah returned, her face a mixture of alarm and apology. "Oh, goodness. Children, please stay with me." "I'm so sorry, Ethan," she said, turning to him with a sympathetic smile that Ethan was so accustomed to. These little explorers have a bit too much wanderlust today. Lily, however, paid Sarah little mind. Her attention was still on Ethan. "You have a really cool chair?" she said, her eyes scanning the sophisticated controls. "Does it fly? Can you do loops?" Ethan could only shake his head, a faint smile touching his lips. "No," he said, his voice a little stronger this time. "It just helps me move." Lily nodded as if this was the most logical explanation in the world. "That's good, because moving is important, right? My dog, Buster, he sprained his leg last week, and he was so sad he couldn't chase squirrels. He just wanted to move." She paused, her brow furrowing slightly in thought. "What do you do when you can't move where you want to?" This was the question Ethan had dreaded, the one that always led to awkward silences and averted gazes. But Lily's earnest, direct inquiry held no trace of pity, only genuine, childlike curiosity. It was a curiosity that, for the first time, made Ethan feel less like a medical case and more like a fellow traveler on the journey of life. A journey that, for now, had taken a different, unforeseen path for him. The world outside the window seemed a little less distant, a little less unattainable. Sarah, the hospital liaison, quickly and gently guided Lily and her small entourage of curious children back to the main tour group, offering Ethan a final apologetic glance. The doors to the therapy room swished shut, leaving Ethan once again in the quiet, familiar solitude of his opulent prison. But something had shifted. Lily's vibrant energy, her unpretentious questions, and her genuine curiosity had left an indelible mark. For the first time in a long time, the city lights outside didn't just represent a world he was excluded from. They felt like a possibility, a place where unexpected encounters could happen. He replayed their brief conversation in his mind. "What do you do when you can't move where you want to?" Lily had asked. He hadn't had a good answer then. He usually just retreated into himself, or focused on his physiotherapy exercises, or lost himself in the virtual worlds his parents provided. But Lily's question lingered, a seed planted in the sterile soil of his existence. It prompted a different kind of thinking, a desire to articulate his experiences beyond the clinical terms his doctors used. Meanwhile, Lily, back with her group, couldn't stop talking about the spaceship control room and the boy who lived there. Sarah, sensing the unique impact of the encounter, made a mental note. Later that day, as the children were preparing to leave, Sarah discreetly found Ethan's mother, Eleanor, who was making a brief appearance at the hospital to fulfill her duties as a patron. "Mrs. Sterling," Sarah began, her voice professional yet warm, "I just wanted to mention that your son, Ethan, had a rather lovely brief interaction with one of our young visitors today, a girl named Lily. She seemed to genuinely connect with him. It was quite heartwarming to see." Eleanor, accustomed to her son being the subject of professional concern rather than spontaneous social connection, was intrigued. "Really? Ethan? He's usually quite reserved. She's a very open-spirited child," Sarah explained. She asked him about his chair and what he does when he can't move. It was a very natural, innocent exchange. Perhaps if it's something Ethan might appreciate, we could explore a way for them to communicate? Not necessarily a formal visit, but perhaps a letter exchange. Or even a video call if appropriate. Eleanor considered this. While she was protective, she also recognized Ethan's profound loneliness. The idea of a simple, unburdened friendship, free from the pressures of their social circle, held a certain appeal. "That's a lovely thought, Sarah. Thank you for suggesting it. I'll speak with Ethan about it." Back in his penthouse, Ethan found himself unusually restless. He kept picturing Lily's bright, inquisitive eyes. He thought about Green Meadow farms, cows, and sunshine, a world so far removed from his own. He wondered if she chased squirrels like her dog. He wondered if she ever felt trapped. When Eleanor visited his room that evening, her usual anxious demeanor softened by a genuine curiosity about the day's events. Ethan surprised her. "Mom," he began, his voice steady. "That girl, Lily, she asked me what I do when I can't move. I didn't know what to say." Eleanor sat by his side, taking his hand. "What did you want to say, sweetheart?" Ethan looked out at the city lights. "I wanted to say, I watch, I imagine, I wish." He paused, then added, "She's coming from a farm, isn't she? Does she play outside a lot?" Eleanor recounted Sarah's suggestion of a letter exchange. Ethan's eyes, usually downcast, brightened with a flicker of anticipation. "Letters," he mused. "Like with a pen and paper?" "Yes, honey. Or we could set up a special email account if that's easier. Whatever you prefer." I think letters," Ethan decided, a faint smile touching his lips. "It feels more real." And so, a unique correspondence began. Sarah, acting as a discreet intermediary, facilitated the exchange. Lily, excited to share her world, wrote with enthusiastic abandon. Her letters filled with vivid descriptions of farm life, the mischievous antics of the barn cats, the taste of sun-ripened strawberries, the thrill of helping her father herd the sheep. She described the smell of rain on dry earth and the feel of cool mud between her toes. She asked Ethan endless questions about his life in the city, what the buildings looked like up close, what sounds he heard, and if he ever saw airplanes. Ethan, initially hesitant, found himself drawn into the rhythm of Lily's world. He wrote back, carefully, thoughtfully. He described the sterile beauty of his apartment, the distant hum of traffic, the way the lights transformed the city into a glittering spectacle at night. He told her about his books, about the stories he read, and about the virtual reality adventures he sometimes embarked on. He found himself wanting to convey not just the facts of his existence, but the emotions, the observations, the quiet yearning that had been his constant companion. He wrote about the feeling of the smooth, cool metal of his wheelchair, and how sometimes he'd close his eyes and pretend he was gliding through a silent, star-filled cosmos. He discovered a hidden talent for vivid imagery, for painting pictures with words. He was no longer just a boy in a gilded cage. He was a storyteller, sharing his unique perspective with a friend who seemed to understand more than anyone else. The first seeds of a true, unforced connection had been sown, nurtured by ink on paper and a shared, innocent curiosity. As the weeks turned into months, the correspondence between Ethan and Lily blossomed into a vibrant tapestry of shared dreams and experiences. Ethan's penthouse, once a place of solitude and silence, became a sanctuary filled with the warmth of Lily's words. Each letter was like a small treasure, wrapped in bright paper or hastily scrawled on recycled sheets. His mother often found him waiting eagerly by the door for the day's delivery, his heart racing at the anticipation of her bringing home their latest exchange. Lily's letters were filled with wildflowers and laughter, each line bursting with personality. One particularly memorable letter arrived on a blustery day, its edges crinkled and its ink slightly smudged from the drizzle. "Dear Ethan, today was the best day. I helped plant carrots in the garden. It was so muddy I almost lost my boots. Then we had a bonfire and Dad made s'mores. Have you ever had a s'more? They're super sticky but delicious. We roasted marshmallows and they got all gooey. I wonder if you'd like them. Here's a picture of me and Buster. He's the brown dog with the floppy ears. I imagine he'd love to chase your chair. Are there parks where you live? Your friend, Lily." The letter made Ethan smile, evoking sensations he hadn't felt in years. Warmth, joy, and a connection to the natural world that felt so foreign to him. He immediately set to work crafting a response. Feeling invigorated by Lily's energy, he described the view from his window, how the trees of the nearby park turned golden in autumn, and how, on clear days, he could smell the scent of street food wafting up to his room. "Dear Lily, your day sounds amazing. I've never had a s'more, but it sounds like a great adventure. I think I would love to chase Buster. He seems like a fun friend. I do have a park nearby, but I can't run around like you. Sometimes I can only watch the kids play from my window. Maybe one day I can come outside. Thinking of you, Ethan. As he sealed the letter with care, he felt a rush of excitement. The prospect of actually stepping into the world outside, of feeling the breeze against his skin, was invigorating. The words they exchanged became little lifelines, connecting them across the vast divide of their different worlds. Ethan began to feel a spark of hope ignite deep within him. Reading about Lily's adventures made him yearn for movement, for the sensation of grass beneath his fingers, the thrill of the open air, the sounds of laughter. Experiences that felt almost mythical. Dear Lily, I've been thinking. Could we meet? Maybe you could come to the park next time you're in the city. I'd love to see you and show you my favorite place. Let me know if that sounds fun. Eagerly waiting, Ethan. When Sarah delivered the letter, Lily's reaction was instantaneous. Her eyes sparkled with delight and she squealed, causing a ripple of laughter among her friends. We get to meet Ethan. This is going to be amazing, she exclaimed, dancing in a circle. The prospect of stepping beyond her everyday life into Ethan's world thrilled her, just as much as it excited him. The day of their meeting arrived sooner than either anticipated. Ethan had spent the entire previous week preparing, envisioning what this moment would be like. He wore a crisp shirt, freshly pressed, with a hint of cologne Eleanor insisted would make a good impression. Eleanor pushed him in his wheelchair toward the park, her heart bubbling with hope for her son. As they approached the park, Ethan's heart raced. The laughter of children echoed around him, the sun casting dappled patterns through the trees. He spotted a small group of children playing tag nearby, and for a moment he felt the familiar pang of longing. But then he saw her, Lily, in a bright red dress that danced around her like flowers in the wind, waving excitedly. Ethan! She shouted, her voice cutting through the noise. Her enthusiasm was contagious as she raced over, her friends trailing behind her. When she reached him, she bounced on her feet, breaths coming in quick bursts from excitement. You really are here! I can't believe it! This place is amazing! She exclaimed, her eyes wide with wonder. She knelt beside him, examining his wheelchair with intense curiosity. How does it work? Can you go super fast? Ethan laughed, warmth flooding his cheeks. Her energy felt like sunshine breaking through clouds. Not super fast, but I can do spins. He demonstrated a gentle turn, causing her to clap her hands in delight. Their conversation flowed effortlessly. Lily shared stories about her family, the farm, and her dreams of becoming a veterinarian. In turn, Ethan told her about his books, his favorite fictional worlds, and the games that transported him to places beyond his physical limitations. They talked and laughed like old friends, their differences fading into the background, replaced by a shared humanity. Time seemed to stand still as they navigated their blossoming friendship. Ethan felt as if the barriers built over the years began to crumble, revealing a path to a brighter future. They played games, took turns spinning in his chair, and even experimented with rolling down a gentle slope, where Ethan felt the breeze for the first time in so long. As the sun began its descent, painting the sky in hues of orange and pink, Ethan turned to Lily, a lightness in his chest. You know, I never thought I'd be able to play like this again. Lily smiled brightly, her expression brimming with joy. Neither did I. You're so much fun, Ethan. I can't wait to tell everyone back home. They exchanged one last fleeting glance before parting, a shared promise of future adventures hanging in the air between them, the kind only the purest friendships could inspire. As Eleanor pushed Ethan back to their car, he felt transformed. The exhilaration of the day washed over him, a warmth spreading from his fingertips to his toes. Maybe, just maybe, the world outside could hold more than he had ever imagined. In the weeks to come, they remained in touch, their bond growing stronger with each letter, each exchanged story. But now it was no longer just a correspondence. It was a friendship, pendulum-like, swinging between their unique worlds, anchoring each of them to a future filled with hope, possibility, and adventure.